let's do a birth story with baby number 4. I feel like I kind of hop on here every year and I have a new baby. I do feel like I've been pregnant for like 3 years straight, and I'm very happy to not be now. And I'm proud of myself for getting this up by 4. She's almost 4 months. I almost said she's almost 4 months postpartum. I'm almost 4 months postpartum and she's almost 4 months old. Let me put her down. I always said, I was like, you know, if I have a girl, she's not gonna wear those bows. Like, she'll probably just wear the boys' clothes. Nah. Okay, I'm going in. She is wearing, the bows are adorable. Okay, my friend gave me so many girl clothes and she's just so stylish, right? You're so incredible. She's incredible. She's incredible. I'm so in love with her. I do have plans to come back on here and do some more like long form educational videos and content for like women, moms, health, fitness, lifestyle, things like that. I was also thinking of creating a channel for like my fitness stuff to do like on-demand workouts. So I'm excited about that. We'll see. Obviously, I'm a busy mom and I have so much stuff to do. And so that's why YouTube has just been, you know, it is what it is. I kind of hop on here at random times and just for fun. But anyway, I also feel like when I first started my channel and like I grew on here, I almost don't even relate to myself back then, or like I feel like I have found the truest version of myself. I feel like I've been searching for this version of myself my whole life, and nothing ever felt 100% true and right, if that makes sense, until now. When in motherhood and being a wife, like I found myself in motherhood, which I know is silly. And I know a lot of you guys have followed me for fitness stuff, and I grew, and my, you know, my life is completely different. Still very fitness focused, still very into health and wellness, and it's just, as a busy mom now, right? And I do specialize more in like prenatal, postpartum. Still women, you know, fitness for women in general, but I love prenatal and postpartum stuff. Like I dived deep into that education, or educating myself, and so that I can educate others. And anyway, I found like a really strong passion and purpose in both motherhood and fitness for moms, you know? So anyway, let's, enough yapping. Let me go ahead and give you some birth story stuff. It was a wild ride, so buckle up. We're gonna have to rewind a little bit, and I'll try not to yap too hard, okay? Because I told you I filmed a thing and it wasn't great, and I was yapping, okay? And I seriously feel like I forgot how to edit videos on YouTube. Like, it's, I feel like a newbie again. Long story short, why do I say that? It's not gonna be a long story short. It's gonna be a long story, so sit down. Let's rewind back to about my 39-week appointment. I know cervical checks mean nothing, but I was curious. I'm just always nosy and curious, you know, like if there's anything happening, even though, again, I know it means nothing. If I ever have another baby, which don't even ask me right now, okay? I can't even think about that right now, but like if I were to have another baby, I will not do any cervical checks. I will not do membrane sweeps, and you'll see why, okay? So I got checked. I was about 2 centimeters dilated and about 50% effaced. This pregnancy was a little bit different than my other pregnancies. I feel like, oh, thank you. I was having like just more symptoms, I feel like, and towards the end of pregnancy, it's really hard for me to eat any food and like stay, you know, nourish myself, just because I feel like I have no appetite. Like I was starting to get nauseous again. So I started having headaches, and I was also having slightly elevated blood pressure, which was really weird for me because I've never had any type of blood pressure issue in any pregnancy. And so I went in for it was almost 40 weeks. I think my 40-week appointment, they had to reschedule it. It was on my due date, but they rescheduled it for about 3 days beforehand. And when I went in that day, I had a bounding headache. Like it was a really bad headache, and of course I know the symptoms of preeclampsia, and I was a little bit worried about that, so I mentioned it to my doctor. And when I went in there, my blood pressure was high. I don't know if it was because I was anxious and I had just walked up the stairs or whatever. And so she's like, since you have a headache and high blood pressure, I'm sending you to L&D right now. And I was kind of freaking out because I was like, baby, like we could have a baby today. Baby Matthew, husband, we can have a Matthew husband, we can have a baby today. And I was a little bit freaked out. My mother-in-law did take off like a few days before my due date and a few days after. I have given birth, so Grayson was due 2 days after, Leo was born 2 days before spontaneously, and Denham was born on his due date. So I've always given birth around my due date. I've never really been super overdue. And so this little girl obviously had her own plans, and she was like, you know, my theory is she didn't want to be a Virgo, okay? She was like, September 18th was the due date, and Virgo is up until, I think the 23rd is when Libra starts, but I forced this poor girl to be a Virgo. I love Virgos, okay? Nothing against that. This is just a joke. It's stupid. Okay. Sent me to L&D. When I went to L&D, I was there for a few hours. They were like, you're just get comfy, like relax. They did my blood pressure about every 10 minutes and I was totally fine there because I was just resting. I was like scrolling on my phone. I was like creating some content, like, you know, doing stuff like that. I felt really relaxed and they're like, you're totally fine. They're like, but you can get induced if you want because it's almost your due date. And I have two things when I go in for my birth plan. I don't want a C-section and I don't want to be induced. Obviously, if it ever had to come to that, that is what it is, but those were the two things that like I really just didn't want for my birth plan. So I was like, I'm not getting induced. Like I want to go into labor naturally. But I did ask my OB to give me a membrane sweep before going to L&D. I was like, just because I was like, if I end up having to get induced for high blood pressure, I would rather like try to get things going on its own. So she gave me a membrane sweep, but it was very mild. She gave me a membrane sweep with Grayson and it was mild too, and it didn't put me into labor. But when my midwife gave me a membrane sweep with Denim, it was more intense and it put me into labor. And maybe I was just more ready. It 100% probably was, but I already knew. I was like, this isn't gonna put me into labor. So anyway, went home that day. They were like, just keep an eye on it. Make sure you don't get another headache. You can go to like Walmart or something. They have a blood pressure cuff. So anyway, a few days pass, wake up on my due date, still pregnant, go to the gym, whatever. So I think it was 18th, 19th. On the 20th, I think it was. Oh, you okay? You okay, Swirly? I call her Whirly. That's like her Whirly Girly Swirly Twirly. I never understood that until I had her. Now everything is Whirly. Like her name is just Whirly. I don't even call her Elowen or Lowen. 2 days after my due date, I started having a headache again. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, okay, it could be because I'm like not eating like full meals. You know, I just feel like I snapped towards the end. And I'm like, but let me go to Walmart and just double check. So I had Matt watch the kid, or Matt, you know, stayed home with the kids. I went to Walmart and it was slightly elevated. And so anyway, I just called L&D just because I was like, if anything were to happen and I'm already past my due date, I would never forgive myself. And it just is not worth it to not get checked just in case. So they're like, since you were having issues, like just come into L&D, we'll just double check you. It doesn't hurt. So I went to L&D. They checked me again. They're like, you're totally fine again. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So I was like, can I ask the doctor if she can give me another membrane sweep? And so she's like, yeah. So she asked me, she's like, hey, did the other one, was it like intense or was it kind of mild? And I was like, it was very mild. And so she's like, okay, I'm going to give you like 2 times of like an intense one. Are you down for that? And I was like, I'm down, girl. So she went in and it was seriously the most insane membrane sweep I've ever felt in my life. It was a little nuts. And so I went home that day, like she was like, oh, you handled that well. And I'm like, yeah, I almost died, but it's fine. It's bleeding, of course. And they were like, if it's like excessive blood, let us know. But I'm like, bro, I'm bleeding a lot. I have no idea what excessive bleeding means because this is a lot. So I wasn't sure if it was bloody show, if it was just blood. Like it was like a slightly mucousy, but like it wasn't like my normal bloody show. So anyway, went to bed, woke up at 2 a.m. contracting. So I'm super excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm going to be in labor. I'm going to give birth today. 5 a.m. September 20th. I'm pretty sure we're going to meet our daughter today. Morning, I got like 4 hours of sleep. And I've been contracting every 15 minutes since 2 a.m. It's now 5 a.m. So 3 hours of early labor so far. I think this was the September 20th, okay? So 2 days after my due date, I'm contracting every 12 to 15 minutes from 2 a.m. until 6 a.m. The kids wake up and it's stalled out. And I'm like, oh no. Like, oh no, no, no. Let's go, sissy. And it felt more intense than Braxton Hicks, okay? I can usually tell the difference because with Braxton Hicks, I can pretty much be laying down or just like sitting on my butt and getting through them with breathing. But with real contractions, I usually need to either be on the birth ball or like I need to breathe through them and focus on them. And that's what was happening. So they were really, they weren't like super intense, but they were more intense than Braxton Hicks in my opinion. So I'm like, okay, this has to be labor, but like it's probably just early labor, because nothing was getting close together and it stalled out. So then that morning, I'm like trying to get things going again. I am going curb walking. I'm doing the mile circuit. I told Matt we needed a cuddle. Okay. We did all the things and things picked back up and it was every 10 to 15 minutes again. So I'm like, okay, cool. It's like we got a 10-minute. Like it's slowly progressing, but I had never had like this long early labor before ever in any of my with Grayson I did. With Grayson I did, and my water broke at 6 p.m. It was really weird. He was the only one where I had like a long early labor. But I probably was having Braxton Hicks with him too. Like when I think back to it, because I never felt what real contractions would felt like. But with Leo and Denim, I just woke up in active labor. I went to the hospital. I had the baby. It was like, you know, it was just like bing, bang, boom type of thing. So anyway, we start doing all the things. I'm contracting. I'm laboring pretty much all day. And I'm like, I just have a feeling that when the kids go to bed that night, I'm going to be in active labor, because sometimes you need that oxytocin and that like calmness and that stress-free environment to just really get things going. So later that night, my mother-in-law was also like, okay, are you in labor? Are you not in labor? Like, what's going on? You know, we were kind of keeping her updated, and she was like, what do I do? You know, like, you know, I'm pretty sure she came over, but I don't remember. Honestly, this was all a blur. Like, the whole day kind of felt just like, it felt like 4 days long. It was only like it was like 30 hours total, I think, since the first contraction. Anyway, so that day I'm also like trying to take a nap. I took a shower. I gave myself a blowout. I'm like blow drying my hair. I'm like getting ready. I'm like doing everything, right? So then the kids finally go to bed, and it was really hard for me to also focus on being a mom, because I literally had to breathe through the contractions, and I only had that one break in that morning, and then I was contracting consecutively. So I felt like I was like in labor while trying to be a mom. It was really tough. It was really, really hard mentally, and I was just like, it was just mentally hard.
Scram! Leave her alone. She doesn't want to talk to you.
Kids go to bed. She's so sweet. You're so beautiful. We started our affirmations the other day. Yeah, you're smart. You're kind. You're strong. She's like, yeah, nothing was getting closer together, and I felt just so defeated, because I was like, nothing is progressing, and I'm just so frustrated. I didn't want to cuddle again, you know. I was just like so over it at that point. Let's just go to bed. So I'm like, if I wake up and I'm still not in labor, like, I'm going to lose my mind. Okay, so we basically wake up, like, I try to fall asleep, and I'm pretty sure I did fall asleep, and then I wake up again at midnight, and I'm still contracting. So then I'm contracting, like, again, like I had been contracting all day long, only that break in the morning, and then I contracted. I probably took like a 2-hour nap. I woke up at midnight, and I'm contracting hardcore again from like 10 to 15 minutes, but nothing was closer than 10 minutes. So I was losing my mind. At 6 o'clock, I woke up Matt, and I'm like, I'm just bawling. I'm hysterical. And my mother-in-law was actually just slipped over, because she was like hoping that I'd be on active labor. And so I'm like, we gotta go to L&D, because I can't do this anymore. Like, I seriously am hysterical. Like, I can't wake up and be a mom. Like, I can't be present for my kids like this, you know? So I go to L&D, and I'm just like, I'll insert a clip. I took a video of me crying. Okay, it's kind of funny when I look back at it. Just a little update. I can't stop crying going on to see if they can at least check me and figure something out. But I'm miserable. I basically was in the car. We stopped at Starbucks, because I'm like, I seriously felt like I hadn't slept in like, I probably slept a total of 4 hours in like the last 2 days. And it had been 30 hours of, I guess, prodromal labor. Okay, so we go to L&D, and they check me, and I am the exact same dilation and effacement that I was at 38 weeks. And so I'm like, this is a joke. Like, I seriously was just bawling. Like, okay, you have 2 options now. Number one, we give you some morphine and Benadryl. You go home, you take a nap, and you know, best case scenario is you wake up in active labor. If you don't, at least you get some sleep. I think back to it, I should have just, you know, let it run its course type of thing. But I was like, what if I'm in prodromal labor? And they were telling me that these were Braxton Hicks too. She's like, because you're not progressing. So these have to be Braxton Hicks. I'm like, these are the most insane Braxton Hicks I've ever felt in my life, because they feel like real labor contractions. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like, but what if I have prodromal labor for like the next week, because I'm only 42, so technically I could go to 42 weeks, you know? So I was like, this is the most crazy thing. They're like, the other option is you get induced, and I'm like, this is the only thing I did not want to do. But I talked to my friend Jamie. She had gotten induced. She had a natural birth with induction like 2 times or something. So I talked to her, and she's like, you know, it's totally up to you. Like, she's also a doula, and so anyway, she made me feel very comfortable. And I'm like, you know what, I feel like my only like real option is to get induced, because also my mother-in-law had to go to work that night. And here's the thing, we didn't have anyone else to watch the kids, and if I just kind of like let it ride, I would basically have no babysitters. Like, Matt would have to stay with the kids, and I would have to give birth by myself, and that to me just sounded so scary and horrible, which I know women do it, but kudos to them. Like Matthew is my rock when I'm giving birth. Like every contraction, he's giving me those hip, you know, just support, like constant support. So I'm like, I really felt like I needed that. So anyway, I'm like, you know what? Let's just get induced. Matt and I were like, let's just get this over with. Like, I can't do it anymore. I'm like, I know people have very positive induction, so let's just try it out. He's doing it again. She's like, Mom, who are you talking to? The doctor comes back. She's like, I'll put it in and we'll get you induced. We'll get you set up right away. Then she comes back and she goes, I got some bad news. And I'm like, girl, don't tell me that. I'm like, I cannot take any more bad news. I was like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. And so she's like, we have no rooms. She's like, you got to go home. Oh, man. I wish I could give myself a hug. Like, it's no hard. I wish I could give my little self a hug. I seriously just started bawling, and I'm like, you're joking. And so she's like, no, this is the most popular time to have a baby. Like, everyone's getting pregnant on Christmas, you know? And so I'm like, and I guess it's true. There's tons of September dates. You have to go home, and we can schedule you for an induction for 2 to 3 p.m. You know, she's like, but even if we schedule the induction, if someone comes in with active labor, they come ahead of you. So I'm like, whatever, let's schedule the induction. I'm like, I don't want to take morphine. That kind of scares me, but give me some Benadryl and maybe I'll be able to take naps. So they gave me Benadryl, sent me home. We went home. My mother-in-law was still there, so I took a 2-hour nap. The Benadryl actually knocked me out. It was great. Prodromal labor literally completely stopped. It completely stopped when I was home. And so I was like, I probably shouldn't have even, I don't know. I think back to it now. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have even gone in for the induction because my mother-in-law had to go to work anyway that night, but she would have had to go to work every single day. But anyway, so we went back in. I was just like over it at that point. You know, I was like, you know, I kind of thought about backing out of the induction because they said too, like, if you don't come, like, it's fine, you know, we don't have room for you anyway. But we ended up going back and I'm like, you know what, let's just have this baby. I'm just mentally drained. I felt like I had been in labor for like 2 days already. Go back 2:30 and they're like, we still don't have a room for you, so you have to stay in triage. So we stayed in triage, but I got paired up with the most beautiful angel, amazing nurse. Like, I seriously will remember her the rest of my life. She was my angel through this. Like, I'm gonna cry. I think you got her. Why am I crying? She was so incredible, and she was like she has 8 kids. She was like more like natural focus. She's like, she felt my belly, like she just knew her stuff. She felt my belly. She's like, do you normally sleep on your left side? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, she's in a weird position. She's like, let's get you on the peanut ball. Let's try to get her in a better position. She's like, it's your 4th baby. I don't want to start you in Pitocin in triage because then we'll be screwed and you'll be like giving birth in the hallway. In the triage from 2:30 to 5:30. And so we were there for hours. Matt was just working and I was just like kind of relaxing and I was on the peanut ball and she was checking in at me. 5:30, she's like, we have a room. So she stayed with me the whole time. So I'm like, oh, thank goodness. So we went in the room and so she started me on the tiniest dose of Pitocin. Like, I seriously didn't feel anything. Like, I still was not in active labor until 7:30. She was basically like slowly upping the dose, but it was like the tiniest dose and she was just slowly upping the dose from 5:30 to 7:30. 7:30, things were finally kicking up. I was so excited. And when we got in the room too, they like gave us food and we were like watching a show. I think we were watching Dexter or something, and it was great. We were just kind of like hanging out and we were calling the kids and they were home. My mother-in-law did have to go to work, so thankfully Uncle Adam, Matt's brother, and then Uncle Willie, which is my mother-in-law's brother, him and his wife live with her. So Adam took them over and they slept over. So thank God, like, for Matt's family, because we needed that. My mom had to work too, and so it was just like a mess. They came over and they were just watching the kids, and so finally at 7:30 things started kicking up and I was so excited to be in pain. I was seriously like, give it to me, baby, you know. I was laboring pretty much, this gets crazy too, okay? So I was laboring pretty much from 7:30 until 9:30, okay? And Pitocin contractions, like, when people say they're no joke, they're no joke, okay? They were definitely intense. Like, they were very intense. And I was having back labor too because she was just in a weird position. So it was just like boom, but like one thing after another. I just like felt like I couldn't catch a break, you know, which was just mentally tiring. Then they were like, we really should break your waters. Like, I think that the natural hormones of your waters breaking could really get things going. They're like, but if you do want an epidural, it would be the time to get an epidural. I was like, you know, I'm not like married to any idea. Like, my biggest thing is I always just want to be able to move around as long as possible. And I'm like, but I would want to get checked just to see where I'm at. Like, if I'm like barely dilated, then I'm going to get the epidural. And if I'm like super far, like, I might as well just keep going because I feel like things will pick up fast. They checked me and I was seriously 3.5 centimeters. I seriously started bawling, and they're like, it doesn't mean anything. And I know it doesn't mean anything. I know that. And I'm just like, but hearing that you're like 3.5 centimeters after like 2 days of prodromal labor, and then, you know, 2.5 hours, I think it was like 2.5 to 3 hours. So I'm like, I'm getting that epidural, dude. Like, I'm so exhausted. You know, I need a freaking break. She gave me the most perfect epidural because I could still feel my legs and I could still feel everything down there, which I really enjoyed because like I didn't have to have people help me pick up my legs, if that makes sense. But it took away the pain in my back mostly, and then it took away like the intenseness in my, you know, uterus area, obviously. Probably close to 10 o'clock. And then she's like, okay, my nurse was like, I gotta put your catheter in and we'll break your water. So right when I turned over for her to put the catheter in, my water broke, which was exactly what my body needed. I probably just should have went away and went ahead and gotten that. She put the catheter in, and like I said, I could feel everything, which I didn't like it with the catheter. That was a little weird. I liked that I could move myself, you know. It was just like, it was seriously the perfect epidural. I started feeling a ton of pressure. This was probably after like 30 minutes after my water broke. Okay, I'm just feeling a lot down there, and so my nurse was like, I hope you give birth before I go home, because she had to go home at like 11:30 or something. Me too. And so I think it was around 10:45 or yeah, 10:45 to 11, she checked me, and I was only 4.5 centimeters. And at that point I'm hysterical again, because I'm like, I'm gonna be in labor the rest of my life. Like, this is this is crazy. So she's like, but it's weird because your cervix is so thick still. And I'm like, you know what, I asked the doctor at L&D when I went in the morning, I asked her to give me that cervical thinning medication, whatever that is, because whenever your cervix is thinner, you dilate quicker versus the other way around. Like, you don't really dilate when your cervix is still thick. And she told me that it was too late. So I'm upset now because she's like, you should have gotten that in the morning. You probably would have already had your baby by now. So I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, this was just like, you know, again, boom, boom, boom. One thing after another just kept happening. And I was just like so defeated. I felt so defeated, so upset, and I felt so much pressure down there. Like I said, I could feel everything down there. All of a sudden she went home. Okay, so from 11 o'clock, that was at 10:45, she checked me, I was 4.5 centimeters. So from like 11 o'clock until 11:30, I dilated from 4.5 to 10. And this happened to me with Denim, this happened to me with Leo. So I should know that, like, even if I dilate slow, I'm gonna go from a 4 or a 6 to a 10 in 30 minutes. That happens every time. I started to get the shakes, you know, like when your jaw chatters really bad and like you're just like uncontrollable shaking. That happens to me every single labor, especially like in transition. And so nurse went home, and seriously, like 5 minutes after she left, I was like, I called the new nurse in, and I'm like, she's coming out. I'm like, this girl's coming out of my hoo-ha. I'm giving birth. Like, and she's like, well, I'll have the midwife come in and check you. And I'm like, hurry up, because I seriously feel like she is coming out of me and I can't hold her in. You know, I'm like, I already know. I'm like, even though I had another mental breakdown like 30 minutes ago and I was only 4.5 centimeters, I was like, I do kind of feel like I'm a 10 because it feels like she's flying out of me. So the midwife like runs in. She was with someone else, and she like flew to our room, and I'm like, she checked me and she's like, you're a 10. It's go time. So I wake up Matt and I'm like, baby, we're having a baby. And he's like, oh, you know, I think he took like a 20-minute nap or something. I told him to go to sleep because I was like, I'm only 4.5 centimeters, bro. Like, we could be here for years. And wakes up and we're just like exhausted. But it was September 21st at 11:38. Do you remember the 21st of September? I should have an Earth, Wind, and Fire first birthday party. What do you think? Like, seriously, it went fast as heck after my water broke. Like I said, 30 minutes, 4.5 to 10 centimeters, and my cervix thinned out like so quickly and so rapidly. And so anyway, I tried to push on my side because I haven't always pushed on my back. Even though I do the internal rotation, I prop up the sacrum, I do like all of the things that you need to do. I hated side lying, and so then I switched over my back, and she was just, it took me like 3 pushes once I got my back, and then she was born. Came out perfect, no tearing. Like, she was incredible. Like, I was like in shock. I was seriously so in shock because it went from 0 to 100 again, even though this has happened to me before. Just every time that happens, I'm like, it doesn't even feel real. And then I'm like, I'm having a new baby. Like, it just, that like feeling though is so euphoric when you give birth and you just have a whole new baby. And then I'm like gonna cry. She's so perfect. I love you. She's smiling. Anyway. I love you so much. She's laughing. She's seriously so incredible. And I don't know if you guys have seen the story about her, like her story about on my Instagram. about how I know that my father-in-law sent her, just because anyway, I don't know if you guys want that story too. I probably shouldn't just upload it on here, but yeah, my little sunflower girl. Asked God, the universe, whatever, you know, to give me a sign when I was pregnant with her if it was a girl, and I asked to see sunflowers if it was a girl, daisies if it was a boy. I saw sunflowers everywhere. Everywhere. When I was getting my blood drawn for the NIPT test, a huge thing of sunflowers. We had like the most beautiful golden hour, and then when we were getting wheeled to our room, there was sunflowers all over the walls. So I was just like hysterically crying because I'm like, this is just insane. I basically had implantation bleeding on Christmas Day. Mother-in-law's house, mother and father-in-law's house. We lost my father-in-law last year on September 28th. And when I figured out what my due date was, it was 1 week before he died to the year. I'm like, I know he sent her. And I was like, maybe she was waiting to be born on the 28th. I don't know. But yeah, she was born 1 week before he died to the year. So I already know that he met her up there and he sent her to us. So perfect. Anyway, yeah, so it was just so beautiful. And then we had that, you know, like when it's just like you, your husband, and your new baby, and it's just, I don't know, it's just an amazing, beautiful, euphoric, wonderful feeling in time. But anyway, the boys, like, seriously, like, they've had zero issues with transitioning too, and Denham, they're 17-month age gap, and he's like the most angel baby ever. Just, they loved her from like the second she got home, and it's been great. I can't wait to see her like running around with the big boys. Like, she's gonna hold her own, okay? I already know it. She, like I said, she had to be a little bit different with her little birth.
Yes. You said no way, Mom. I'm not gonna just make it easy. You said no way, Gilbert.
So that's my birth story, guys. Thank you for still being here if you're here.
Oh.
Yeah, that's all.